But you know, since I do watch it, I see Noah as possibly the first recorded member of the Strategic Response Unit that spoke up for us and saved us all from disaster. Now, in Science of Mind, we teach that all Scripture is not to be interpreted literally, but metaphysically. And what that means is that we see every character, every situation as representing some part of our consciousness, some way of being in the world. And so if we were to look at this story of Noah's Ark, the voice of God that we hear about is that voice in us that is getting our attention regarding the negative effects, our beliefs that are not in alignment with our sense of oneness with God, and that are causing suffering or any kind of discord in our lives. See, in Science of Mind, what we emphasize is that all suffering is the result of us feeling separate from God. That in feeling separate from God, that gives rise to fears, that gives rise to behaviors of withholding, of resenting, of me versus you, which then creates all the negative conditions in the world. So an example would be, if you're feeling unfulfilled, that may be from a feeling of not enoughness in you, that you're not enough to pursue something that your heart is calling you to pursue. Or if you're really suffering from a sense of loneliness, well, maybe that's due to your shutting down because of some resentment or some inability to forgive. So you're shutting down from loving and being open to love of others, just some possibilities. And initially, as we start to realize ways that we're not living up to our potential, like ways that we're withholding love or generosity, we can feel worse about ourselves, right? Do we all notice that inner voice that is so ready to self-deprecate? How often have we heard people say, I'm my own worst critic? That, that voice in us that sees how we're not being our best just wants to eradicate that whole behavior. But then there's this other part of us that is Noah, the part of us that knows itself to be good, that part of us that is willing to take that goodness that it is and move into greater experiences of goodness. And when that part of us comes forth, then that other part of us, the critic, can work with that part. So the part of us that says, there's some greater good that you can be, and there's this part of us that says, there's so much good in me, they can work together to create a new reality. And so they collaborate, and the ark represents the consciousness, the new way of being that we are trying to create for ourselves. The animals that we bring into the ark represent those thoughts, those beliefs that we want to adopt, that we want to propagate in order to have a greater experience of life. And the ones that die are the old patterns, the old beliefs that no longer serve us. And so in terms of building that ark, in terms of being willing to step into a greater dimension of love or joy or self-expression, that's when we're called upon to do our spiritual work. The spiritual practices that we promote of prayer and meditation, of working with our practitioners, of studying, of reading things that inspire our minds, these are the ways that we start to bring in the animals, those ideas that we want to propagate in our consciousness to give us that greater sense of that goodness of God that is bigger than anything we've experienced in the past. So we do the work to replace the limiting beliefs with those that serve us. So, for example, the I'm not lovable beliefs would be replaced by, God's love in me is boundless. Just as I can love, I am loved by the universe. I can never have is God in me is unlimited. God is always giving of itself unto itself, and I'm open to receiving.